Good evening. We're coming on the air tonight with a special edition of NBC3 News at 7, live tonight from the old Onondaga County Courthouse in downtown Syracuse. For the second time, a jury in Onondaga County Criminal Court finds Robert Neulander guilty of killing his wife Leslie, then staging the scene in their DeWitt mansion to make it appear as if she had taken a bad fall in the shower. This time, this second time around, for a Newlander jury, the panel took far less time to reach that guilty verdict than it did back in 2015. New video just in tonight, and this is the video of the day. It's Robert Neulander back in handcuffs once again. He's been out of prison since 2018, when his conviction for his wife Leslie's murder was overturned because one of the jurors was texting way too much during the first trial and was texting too much about specific things related to the case. And we remember Leslie Newlander on this night, the voiceless victim in the middle of this nearly decade-long ordeal. This coming September will mark 10 years since she was murdered by her husband. Leslie Newlander was 61 years old when she died, and now twice a jury has decided her husband killed her in 2012. Over the next half hour here at 7 o'clock tonight, we're going to bring you team coverage on this story. We've had a team of reporters covering the trial every day, and many of them down here for this emotional verdict that was delivered today. Before we get to that, and as we talk about the emotion of the day, I want to bring you part of my conversation with Ari Newlander, the son of Robert and Leslie Newlander. He has been here every day supporting his father, as many other family members have. He took the stand in both murder trials in his father's defense. And today, when I spoke with him in the courthouse hallway, it appeared to me very clearly that Ari Newlander had some things he wanted to get off his chest.
This has just been a travesty of justice. My father is innocent, and we're going to have to do it all over again. I mean, the fact that my entire family is standing behind him after 10 years, do you think we'd be with him if we thought he was guilty?
What do you make of, and you've heard the members of the community discuss at length, the family's support for your dad and the steadfastness with which you have done this over so many years? Where does that come from? Where is that inside of you?
Instilled from my mother and my father. We wouldn't be here without my parents, and I can assure you, every one of my family members would have been taking the stand against my father if he had done anything to my mother. We love my mother just as much as my father. That doesn't change anything. Just because we only have one parent left doesn't mean that we're going to protect the person that killed our mother, our sister, our aunt, our family. This is a travesty of justice once again. And we're going to get him out again, however long that takes. We're going to appeal the decision. The district attorney likes to lie. He's a bully. He's a predator in this community. He is the most dangerous person to anybody in this community.
I know you're upset, Ari. I'm wondering what you miss most about your mom. Can you share that? Because there's been so much focus on your dad. There's been so much focus on the criminal process here. And I think some of what may be lost in it is how you all feel about your mom. What can you...
We miss my mother. We miss our mother, dearly. And if she were here, she'd be disgusted with how this community has treated her family. The district attorney does not speak for my mother. I was up on the stand speaking for my mother. Her sister, my aunt, was on the stand speaking for my mother. No one who claims that they're speaking for my mother is actually there for her. They're there to serve their own interests, and that's it.
Megan Coleman is with me tonight. We've been covering this story together since Robert Neulander was first arrested and charged with this crime way back when. When you look at Ari Newlander today and what he said after court, what strikes you the most?
It breaks my heart, to be honest with you, because these children have been through so much, right? They lost their mother. She was just 61 years old. 61. She was beautiful and clearly meant so much to them. And then to face not one but two trials involving not a stranger, but their own dad. So I very often think of them, and it's been a nightmare for them for the last 10 years.
You called the district attorney of Onondaga County a predator. after court, the DA was not taking the bait on that, definitely sort of trying to walk away from those comments. He didn't want to really get involved.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the DA has had a lot to say about this case over the last 10 years. He has prosecuted Robert Neulander twice now. Our Mary Keeler caught up with DA Bill Fitzpatrick in the hallway just after that verdict was announced. She asked him if he felt like he was speaking for Leslie Newlander, even if her own kids disagree.
In your closing arguments, you ended with, "It's time for the people to speak for Leslie Newlander." Do you feel that that has happened with this guilty verdict?
I certainly do. I certainly do. These 12 people spoke for Leslie, even if her own family won't. And good for them. Good for the jury.
That is DA Bill Fitzpatrick just after that verdict was announced. 7 hours of deliberations today.
I hear Ari Newlander in his comments to me afterwards, and I see a young man who is very angry about what's going on here, but clearly had something that he needed to say to the community at large. And the topic that I most wanted to go with him, to ask him about, was that family support. He is steadfast, and so are the rest of the family members. They are immovable when it comes to the fact that they do not believe that there was a murder in this case to begin with.
That's right. And this has been the case, Michael, for the last 10 years, as you know. Since the day that Leslie died, they have always supported their father through both trials. We're talking about all 4 of his children, 2 from the marriage with Leslie, 2 from a previous marriage, along with his brother and her own sister. They have all stood by him.
We need to focus tonight, and we would be remiss if we didn't, on the victim at the center of this. We have the name Robert Neulander has been on our lips for years, not so much Leslie Newlander.
And I think that people in this community want to remember her, and they want to celebrate her because she meant a lot to a lot of people in this community. Many of her friends have not wanted to speak out publicly about this case because it was so painful for them. But 6 years ago, I did catch up with 2 people who knew her well.
You can't help look at that smile and smile. You can't help, I love it. You know, that one picture of her and I together, I look at it and I start smiling.
She was a loving mother, a cherished friend, and a woman with a deep commitment to her community.
Leslie wanted to pay it forward. She wanted to give back to the community that so richly embraced her. She wasn't from Syracuse. So when she came into the community, she wanted to be a part of it.
Those who knew Leslie Newlander remember her as fun-loving, energetic, and dynamic.
Her smile and her way about her was so subtle and so infectious, you couldn't say no. And I miss that. I do miss that.
On the Jewish Community Center campus, the Sports and Fitness Center still bears the Newlander name, a family deeply involved in the Jewish community and beyond. Her death left a huge hole in the hearts of those who knew and loved her.
Leslie was the type of person that would enter a room and bring it alive. Yeah, I call her my personal Tinkerbell because she flitted in and she lit the room up, and then she'd leave and I'd go, oh, Leslie was here. So when I see her picture like this, I remember the beauty she brought with her. I remember, and she was such a deep soul.
Remembering Leslie Newlander on the night where her husband is convicted of murdering her again. We'll be right back. Our team coverage continues after this. Tonight, former OBGYN Dr. Robert Neulander guilty of murder once again. Connor White has been on this second murder trial since the first day that it started. Connor, I know that so much of your focus throughout covering this has been on Jenna Newlander. When CBS 48 Hours did its special on this, it titled the program The Doctor's Daughter. This was a different Jenna Newlander, though, than the first trial.
It was, at least as far as the jury would have been concerned. Sure. It was almost the missing witness who was there really the whole time. We saw her from day one in lockstep with her father walking into the courthouse, but it's something that the jury never really saw, never called to the stand, and it's something that might have factored into their deliberations, Michael, the fact that she never came to the stand there.
You are in the courtroom. I want to take the viewers sort of into the court hallways, which is you as a reporter and the family there, including Robert Neulander, Jenna Newlander, Ari Newlander, and some of the other children who were sprinkled in throughout the course of the trial. What is that like? When you're there to cover, you've got the camera, you're putting it on them, and they know that they're going to be on television that night. I mean, what is that like? That sort of relationship between you and the family?
Sure, it's for a lot of it, it's not much more than an acknowledgement because, of course, you know, the huge elephant in the room that's explicitly stated every day is we're here for a murder trial for their father, their brother, depending on who we're talking about. So it's almost a little bit of an awkward back and forth it can be. But for the most part, when they were walking by us, it was eyes straight forward. Very rarely got an acknowledgement until you had a chance to speak with Ari today.
Yeah, he had some things that he wanted to say today. Connor, I appreciate your perspective. When we continue tonight at 7 o'clock, we're bringing in the perspective of the man who won this case, Onondaga County District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick, on convicting Robert Neulander a second time. We'll be right back. Tonight, Robert Neulander being booked on a charge of second-degree murder at the Onondaga County Justice Center Jail. And Mary Keeler is with me now as we continue our team coverage with a focus on the prosecution, because so much of your focus over the last 2+ weeks has been on the district attorney's case. What was his mood after the verdict was reached, Mary?
Yeah, Michael, we saw him just moments after that guilty verdict was read out in court. We were all there for that tense moment, and it was moments, seconds really, after Robert Neulander was escorted by all of those court officers. The video we've been showing really all night since that happened, in handcuffs for the first time in several years, because he's been through this before. This is the second time. But the district attorney saying that this is really confirming what he has maintained all along, which is that Leslie Newlander did not slip and fall in the shower. She was murdered in a fit of rage by her husband, Robert Neulander, in their DeWitt mansion in 2012. Fitzpatrick talking to us again moments after that verdict was read, and we were taking it all in. It was quick. You were speaking to Ari, we were speaking to Bill Fitzpatrick, and this is part of what he said. He was addressing some of the really suspicious circumstances and underlying questions that may have led the verdict to be guilty from this jury.
Sure, there's a lot of questions. You know, what did he use? Where did he dispose of the evidence? You know, possibly in Green Lakes. That would be my theory, because he said he went to Green Lakes, and that would explain if somebody saw him there. So, and you know, it's a sad day. This man ruined a family, his own family. He made Jenna the victim number 2 in the case, and you know, the irony is that Jenna, in her efforts to absolve him, hurt him so badly in the first trial that, as you all know, they chose not even to call her in the second trial, and that hurt him again, and that's the way it should be.
The district attorney who promised years ago that he would retry and get a conviction does get another conviction.
That's what he did.
All right, Mary Keeler, we appreciate your coverage. Thank you very much. Let's focus on the victim once again, Leslie Newlander, because earlier in this broadcast you heard a direct quote from someone who knew her well. And the quote is, "I remember the beauty she brought with her. She was such a deep soul." That's what a friend had to say earlier about Leslie Newlander. Her face seen all over the country because this story got so much national attention. Featured on Dateline NBC, CBS 48 Hours, and other news broadcasts. I want to bring in NBC3's Megan Coleman once again. Megan and I have been on this story since not long after 2012, when rumors started circulating in segments of the community that something was going on with this woman's death, Leslie Newlander. She slipped and fell in the shower. Everyone thought it was tragic. But not everyone.
But not everyone, including the former Onondaga County Medical Examiner, Dr. Mary Jim-Bellick, who came to the DA and said, something's not quite right here. I'd really like to look at this. He then gave her that chance to look at the file, and the DA started digging into it.
The jury in the first case took 18 hours over the course of 4 days to come up with its guilty verdict. This jury today sends a note to the judge. First thing, we'd like the PowerPoint presentations from the closing arguments. The judge quickly says, no, you're not getting those. Those are not evidence. You can have all the autopsy photos, you can have everything else, but you can't have that. And then within 6 hours, they come back and they say, we have a verdict and it's guilty. It would seem to me, and I'd love to get your take on this, that they discounted so much of that blood and forensic evidence and they went with their gut.
Right. Well, as the DA had said in his closing arguments, you have to follow what makes sense, right?
What makes sense,
use your
certainly.
common sense. The lead prosecutor in this, Jonathan Bach, went on for more than 3 hours. I think like 3 hours and 15 minutes, right? Trying to go through very meticulously and pick apart the DA's story, right? Clearly that did not work with the jury. And they very quickly, as you noted, found him guilty.
After the verdict came in, I texted a juror who was part of the 2015 trial. This jury, as you know, has been tight-lipped. They made a pact not to speak publicly, not to talk to reporters. One of them ultimately did, not this one. And she texted me, she said, "I'm in tears right now. I've always stood by our decision in the first trial. The facts were there in the first and the second trial. Leslie can finally rest in peace with justice served." It gives you a window into the mind of a juror in a criminal murder trial, that they do identify with the victim.
Right.
To varying degrees, but in this case, in that 2015 trial, they clearly did.
Well, and as the DA said during his closing arguments, he felt like he was the voice for Leslie, that she was no longer here, so she couldn't speak for herself to tell everyone what happened in those moments leading up to her death. And clearly this jury agrees with the DA's sentiment.
Absolutely. Megan Coleman, appreciate it. Thanks for being my partner tonight. I really do appreciate it. We're back tonight with 3 things to remember, 3 things that were different this time around as we covered the Robert Neulander murder trial, and 3 things that were different for this jury than they were for the jury that convicted him back in 2015. We start right now with the new evidence, and this was bombshell information dropped by the district attorney in his opening arguments. District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick introducing a piece of Leslie Newlander's head on the headboard, found just last year. He said it was definitive proof that she did not die in a fall in the shower, as Robert Neulander had claimed all along. Did the jury take that into consideration? It's a likely bet that they did. The second major change in this trial compared to 2015 is Jenna Newlander herself. We called her the missing witness who was here the entire time, because she was in full support of her father, but not on the witness stand as she was in 2015. Of course, it's her voice that featured so heavily throughout both trials, that 911 call that is so heart-wrenching and difficult to listen to. But unlike the first trial, she did not take the stand in her father's defense. The third thing to remember that was different, that this saga is not over yet. Ari Newlander told me definitively the family still has fight left in it. They will appeal. One of those 3 things make you think? Maybe you'd like to talk more about this trial. You can find me on social media anytime you're looking for me. And that is a special edition of NBC3 News at 7 tonight. I'm Michael Benny. Good night.